Good afternoon again. It's Joyful Christian Mystic Hermit, aka Crazy Lady. But that was the surgeon's office. See, I didn't want to risk losing this wonderful surgeon. But I just ranted this morning on the phone. I was just so well, I was ranting yesterday about the PT lady. I'm just tired and everything hurts extra much lately. I'm trying to adapt and accept and get used to it, and I'm not quite. And I know this other PT must be a lovely person. She was just adversarial all the way along. And I really can't believe she doesn't know that potatoes with peelings and apples with peelings, even. So I told her how I make pureed applesauce. And that's it. Apples are one of the known biggest fiber things. That she didn't know that, but and claimed, that vegetable soups with carrots and onions and celery wasn't fiber. And I explained to her how even if you puree it, I was surprised by this. Even if you puree a vegetable soup, you still get the fiber. But I puree it so it'll get through my intestines easier. Even at that, I have to take extra stuff. So I was all wound up this morning. I told this nice Karina. I love the name Karina. She's the nurse, and she just called back so that their rehab place that does the physical therapy, and they know this woman, Andrea is her name, and that she is excellent. She's sharp. She knows what she's doing, and I'll just feel so much better. Even I'm going to have to wait probably a while to get in, so I'll just do my little exercises. What woman who's had 3 kids doesn't know how to do Kegels? So I already know how to do a lot of the exercises that I've read from Mayo Clinic site. They're what you're supposed to do if you have prolapsed organs. So I'll go ahead and do those and do extra walking, and if my toe can tolerate it, and sipping my little mystical mist, uh, sort of as a treat and a success of, well, and being a hermit and being a mystic, I sense souls. And when it's a soul that is playing me for the fool or being adversarial or something, I don't know if she was pretend being daft, that she literally didn't know how to call the surgeon's office and ask them to forward the test results. But she said she didn't. I mean, that was scary. That my body was in the hands of someone who then wanted to do an internal exam to see for herself. Like I told Karina this morning, would she even know what she's looking at? If she doesn't know that apple with peeling is fiber, she said, no, it wasn't. Would she know what she's looking at? When she's doing this exam that's invasive, I've already had worse. I just, anyway, Joyful Hermit's Mystical Mist it's medicinal. It truly is. And I wish Tom were here from Ireland because, and also Martin, because it's an Irish base liqueur, Irish whiskey base. So it's with my 7 mysterious infusions that have steeped for, well, I didn't let it steep for 15 years. I think I did three months of steeping of my mysterious infusions. And then from there, it's just been settling. Well, aging. It's been aging for 15 years. So I broke it out. From the, so here, I have this other too that I brought out. I need support. I don't know why. I'm just in some kind of an unknown territory. This has been a different kind of a dark night. And I think just with the added pain, and my toe isn't healed. It's icky looking. I took a photo, but I've had enough dealings with the world for today. Well, I still have to go to the bank and try to get the bill pay thing figured out because it's not taking my Medicare account number, and it should. I called Medicare yesterday. It is indeed my number, so it's something with the bank bill pay that is not accepting my account number for Medicare, and I want to pay through my bank if I can. If not, I'll have to go to some other account or send a check, but I'm not up for, I have to probably call the toe surgeon and toe and ankle doctor and send a photo of this toe, maybe. I decided to not use a Band-Aid anymore. I'm just going to let it try to heal up. But Lovey stepped on it again yesterday, had the Band-Aid on it, and I had my hard leather shoes on, my Dansko clogs, to help. But then that maybe is hurting it. I don't know. So I thought, well, I need St. Teresa. This is an artist. This is from the like 1906 or no 1896. From an old Bible that had a lot of these prints in it of different saints. A Catholic Bible that I got, and was it a Bible? No, I think it was some book about the Catholic faith, big fat thing, that was printed, published in 1896. And it had all these saint, and also it had like Stations of the Cross, different prints, and it was falling apart. I got it at an auction back in the Midwest, and I have taken out the pictures and I framed them, just in little inexpensive frames. And the stations I put in plastic covers and have them in a binder. So, and I haven't developed a Stations of the Cross here. I use stones in one property, but I think here I'm going to use trees. Different conifers will be the stations. But this is supposed to be Teresa of Avila. And she really looks more like she has a Carthusian, more a white habit. But I thought, I need her because she had terrible bone spurs in her feet, yet she walked and walked. I need to do more walking. The dogs would like it, and my back would like it probably, except for the impacting on concrete. I'll walk out in the common area on the grass. But it's good for your abdominal muscles. Walking is one of the things listed. Walking, bike riding, and swimming. And I can't swim. I know how to swim. But when I get into a pool and start to try to swim with my back, it's so relaxing. And I'm not noticing if I turn my back in a wrong way. And so invariably when I would go and try to swim for anything to help my back pain, then I would end up the next day with a terrible pain siege from having turned the wrong way and tweaking it. So since it's fused, so I stay away from pools, swimming, and I do have a stationary bike here. I need to get it pulled out. I can start doing that. It has a reclining back on it. It's just stationary here. And that could be put to good use with me. And then the walking, more walking. Now here's another, this is from my friend Art, the artist. And although he had a family, and for his sustenance, he worked as an illustrator for International Harvester Company that makes the big combines and things. He worked in their illustration department, doing technical drawings to bring in money, bring in the bacon. But he was not, that was not, of course, it was a sacrifice job he had to do. But I have another artist friend who does more sculpting and pottery. But he had to be an art teacher to bring in money, because now Carol, our viewer, she sustains through her art. She's a fine artist, And so her art pieces are, and art now, since has the luxury of, he's 80, but he's been retired for probably 15 or 20 years, I bet. I think he retired early. He could. He got his kids are through college and had 2 children, and needs to be home with his wife, who has an illness that she inherited, but she requires to have someone there to make sure her meds are working okay, because that can get very dangerous if someone's not there, if something happens. She can hear voices if her meds aren't just quite right. And one time she did, and he had to run a quick errand he had made his their granddaughter, something had been visiting and had gone back home, but had something they had done with pottery, and it needed to go in a kiln at the university where he had taught part-time. In his retirement, he did that. So he got back home, and voices had told her that she had a list of people, my name on it too, that she had to kill herself so that we all could have life. Otherwise, we would need to go. We would need to be killed, or we would die. And of course, it was the devil. See, that's the devil moving in on somebody who's ill. They didn't realize that her medications were off. She was taking them. They just weren't adequate anymore, needed to be adjusted. And she had not long before been to the psychiatrist to get blood tests to make sure. So, but they, so that was, she nearly died. And he found this note and the list of names and why she had to do it, and that these voices told her she had to. And thank God he got home. It was a quick errand, so he never goes now, ever. It's not worth the risk. But he and I texted each other. We had sort of noticed, he had noticed there, and I had noticed in emails that maybe something was slightly off. It's hard to tell. So, bless his heart and her heart. It's inherited in her family, and her niece has it. Paranoid schizophrenia. So, and her niece has it a lot worse than she does. So, anyway, he painted this, and it's a different style than his usual. Let me get this on here so you can see it. I have to get it up real close. It's the shipwreck of St. Paul. You can see St. Paul down there on the beach, shipwrecked and laying there on the beach, and his ship is out there, storm-tossed, violent storm. So this is one of his that he gave me, and so I like that. I have, I think, about 5 of his. Only one did and he was gonna cut rate the one that I saw and wanted. Well, I asked his wife to send some. He was doing a series on the Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, and I loved this one. He won. It's right over there against the wall. I've shown it to you before, and so it's beautiful, and it's more of his usual types of woodcut mixed with a watercolor, or it might even be tempera or something. But and if I live near enough to Carol, I know I would want to get something of hers, but I don't. So, but I get to see on her Facebook. If you look in the comments, her name is there, and then you can go look to her Facebook. Carol Drury is the name. You don't have to look in the comments. I'll let you know. Carol Drury, and she's on Facebook in Vermont. Artist extraordinaire. So let's talk. So anyway, everything's handled, except I do need to call and cancel my appointments with the one physical therapist. But it's rare for me to have such a reaction to a person. But I did with my knee surgeon. I only met with him once. for like 5 minutes, and I didn't feel good about it, and I mentioned it to my pain doctor. There's something wrong with this man. Something wrong with this surgeon. Oh no, but he's got great, and he's got great. Other people say he's great. He's technically great. So don't worry. I said, there's something strange with him, something not right. I think I should get a different. No. He's technically good. Trust me. Well, that's the second time someone said, trust me. The first was that Lovey wouldn't get more than 25 pounds. I shouldn't have trusted that. Except he's so sweet. I can't part with him now, so he's a little too big, but he'll slow down eventually. But it's sad for him because he's not really a innate house dog. Mercy's more the bed dog type. Well, he thinks he's though. He likes to get up on the bed too. But so, yeah, I just sensed it with this woman, and it did turn out with this surgeon. He made a failure of my surgery, and then wouldn't do anything about it either. And there is something wrong with him, and not just wrong. There's a wrong thing in him in his code of ethics even, but he's incapable of interacting with people. He's autistic in a certain way, and he may be technically good, but if you can't relate with your patient and you have a patient that you've had a failed surgery and you refuse to look and see it, and you only have your PA, who's a goofball, meet with the patients, then the patient's SOL, so out of luck, if you have a failed surgery, because then you don't get help for it. And it's not going to get redone. He won't redo it. And so I'm stuck with this bad knee now. But that's the way it goes. But this is all cleared up now with the other. And life can be like that. So moving on to Saint Syridon. And I also remembered Spiros Batakis, this Greek man who taught in the school where I was teaching back in 1983, 84, 83. He was from Greece, and his name is Spiros. So I had read that in every Greek family, if they have a male, they name him Spiros, after this saint, Saint Syridon, who, as Carol mentioned on her own site about Saint Syridon, or in a comment, he saved Corfu from a terrible plague. Even after he had died, the saint had long since been dead, but he came back to the island in spiritual form and drove out the plague. So Saint Syridon, he's going to be interesting. I'm going to just read about it. This is from a ecumenical synod of Nice in 314 AC, where Saint Syridon was at that ecumenical synod of Nice, France. The saint of the Corfiats. I was trying to remember what they call the people of Corfu. They are Corfiats. He's patron saint of the island, the wonder worker saint who saved the island of Falicon many times with his miracles from disaster and starvation, to whom thousands of believers turn to this day, seeking comfort and help. Saint Syridon never set foot on the island. I didn't realize that. He never set foot on the island, yet he saved it. He was born into a poor family in Trimethunda of Cyprus, close to Salamina, in 270 AC. So he was born in the latter 3rd century, in 270. Although he was a simple and illiterate shepherd, he distinguished himself for his faith in God, his humbleness, and his charity. He had a daughter called Elrini, or Irene, from his marriage. When he became a widower, he turned completely to God and became a clergyman, a priest. The reputation he gained was so big that when the bishop of Trimethunda died, the believers announced him their bishop. Back in those days, people would. The population would determine. If they liked one who was very holy, they would declare him their bishop. And that's exactly what they did. The Corfiots did. So even Syridon did not distinguish himself from the rest of the poor people, who consisted of his flock. He wore the same simple clothes as he did before, the same cap that was made of leaves of pine trees, while his life was also poor, as he kept sharing his belongings with the poor. Now that right there is another nudge, a big one, for me to clear out my stuff. Either sell it and use the money for Nigeria Fund, or donate it and let them deal with what they're going to do with the money from the thrift shop. Find a thrift shop that you can read online their percentage of what they give the money for, and try to get one that gives money to the actual poor. That's the best way to go about it, if you can. Syridon kept sharing his belongings with the poor. He would walk everywhere, occupy himself with agricultural work, and continue to be a good shepherd, looking after his flock. His reputation grew more when, with his miracles, he helped people who turned to him seeking his help. He was a major miracle worker, Saint Syridon. So as the bishop then, when he became the bishop in 314, he would be 44 years old then. He took place in the Ecumenical Synod of Nice, convened by the Emperor Constantinos. Not Constantinople, but, I guess it was him. Konstantinos was the Greek word for him, Constantinople. Same time period, so it's same person. In order for the fathers of the church to decide about the theories of Arius or Arian. Arius was an educated father from Alexandria, but he considered Christ a building of God and rejected his three persons nature. So Arius felt that Christ was like just a made up sort of a theory or an idea, but not really not really God, but a man, a person who was wonderful, a prophet, blah blah blah, but not also God, and not part of the Trinity. That, made it so it wasn't a Trinity. There was just God, and then there was this person named Christ, a building of God, an edifice, in other words, as a metaphor for God. Syridon, already well known for his preaching, although illiterate, managed to oppose Arian theories and proved the true nature of God, the consubstantial of the Holy Trinity, with the miracle with the roof tile. He preached on that, of when they brought the young man who wanted healing, and they had such faith that the man took off the roof tiles and lowered the crippled man, or the paralyzed man, young man, down into the room where Jesus was. They were so dead, because there were so many crowds around this house that they couldn't even get in through the door, even close to the door. So they were ingenious on how they were going to get their friend down so where Jesus could heal him. They had great faith, such great faith in Jesus, they were willing to remove the roof tiles in order to get their friend to Jesus. So that was the preaching, the example that Syridon used to get across that Jesus was more than just a man. He was truly God and man, and of the Trinity, one in three persons, consubstantial of the Holy Trinity. So after comparing the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, with the roof tile and its three components that unite it, fire, water, and earth, and he used the material of a roof tile even, and how you make a roof tile out of earth, out of clay, with water, and then you fire it to bake it. So it was a combination. It was, I suppose, in a way, he did that even more than the parable. But the parable showed the miraculous nature, the otherworldly nature of Jesus Christ, of his abilities in healing, and the faith that the people put in him as God. Go to him with great faith, the faith that we have in the Trinity. So, but the three persons consubstantial is relative in the making of a roof tile also. So he held a roof tile in his hand, and immediately fire was created. A miracle. See, Syridon was a miracle worker himself. So holding that roof tile, and immediately fire erupted from the tile. After he ran towards earth water, in the end, the one thing left in his hand was earth. So when this tile he held, or the clay he held, erupted into fire, Syridon had to put it into water. Run and put it into water, earthly, real water, and to put out the fire, and then held up, and what was left was this piece of clay, ready to use as a tile. So after this miracle, Arian was embarrassed, and he apologized for his insistence that Jesus was not part of the Trinity. It was a miraculous lesson and a miracle taught them. So Syridon died. In fact, I don't know if the other was. That's what I thought when they were talking about the roof tile. But no, he went on to explain it was actually a miracle that Syridon did with the roof tile. But I can see where the parable of taking up the tiles would exemplify also the godly nature of Jesus and the reaction of people in his own time. They believed that he was God and could do things that God did, only God did. Syridon died old on the 12th of December, 358 AC, at the age of 88. So that came from that report on what happened at Nicaea. This is from just more information from online about Syridon. Syridon of Tremethus, he was also called. He's a saint honored in both the Eastern and Western Christian traditions. He was born in Asisia in Cyprus. He worked as a shepherd and was known for his great piety. He married and had one daughter, Irene. That's not her Greek name. I'd already pronounced her Greek name and probably couldn't do it again without looking at it again. Upon the death of his wife, Syridon entered a monastery, and their daughter entered a convent. So we know a little bit more what happened with her. Spyridon eventually became bishop, as we know. And he took part in the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea, which we know, although they're saying that was in 325 and instead of the 315 date, which is correct. It's 325, where he was instrumental in countering the theological arguments of Arius and his followers. And we know how that happened, the miracle that he wrought in front of everybody. He also reportedly converted a pagan philosopher to Christianity by using now they're a little bit different, and they're explaining how he did this a little differently in this account, that he used a piece of pottery to illustrate how one single entity, a piece of pottery, some accounts say it was a brick, the other account said it was a tile, could be composed of three unique entities, fire, water, and clay, a metaphor for the Christian doctrine of the Trinity. It is said that when he said, "In the name of the Father," a little bit different, the piece of pottery miraculously burst into flame, and of the Son, when he said that, water began to drip on the let me get this so I can see it right. On the brick or on the piece of pottery. And when he said, "and of the Holy Spirit," that only dust remained in his hand. So little different account, but the same. We know it's a reality because it's a similar usage, and the meanings were the same, and it ended up as a metaphor for the Holy Trinity, how three can be related in one. After the council, Spyridon returned to his diocese in Trimethus. He had earlier fallen into disfavor during the persecutions of the Emperor Maximus Daza, but died peacefully in his old age. Spyridon was popular in Byzantine literature. A poem, now lost, was dedicated to him by his pupil Trifilius. It inspired two 7th century lives, or vitas, on him, books written about him, or biographies, one by Theodore of Paphos around 655, and another possibly by Leontios of Neapolis. The former was used by Simeon the Metaphrast. Arabic and Georgian hagiographies also survive. In the 650s, when the Arabs took Cyprus, and this would be 300 years after his death, over 300 years, or around then, Spyridon's body was disinterred and taken to Constantinople. The relics were found to be incorrupt, meaning they were as if he had just died. A sprig of basil, the royal plant, both of which were taken as it had that also. It contained on him was this sprig of basil, which was taken as a sign of divine confirmation of his sanctity. And it is also said elsewhere that his body temperature was as a live body, like in centigrade, or no, a Fahrenheit would be 68 point, 98.6 is the normal temperature of a person, or 98.7, in that range. So, of temperature. His body was warm to the touch, even though dead, not cold like a corpse, and incorrupt, had not decayed at all. So when Constantinople fell to the Ottomans in 1453, Spyridon's relics were removed again. This time they were taken to the island of Corfu by a Corfiote monk called Calciretus, where they remain to this day in St. Spyridon Church. So when I go on my trip there, I'm going to see St. Spyridon Church and pray there by his coffin, his what do they call it? Like well, I think they have like a shrine there with him in it. Probably a glass coffin to see his incorrupt body. Spyridon is also believed to have saved the island in 1716 siege of Corfu. At that time, the Turkish army and naval force, led by Sultan Ahmed III, appeared in Butrint, opposite Corfu. On July 8th, the Turkish fleet, carrying 33,000 men, sailed to Corfu from Butrint and established a beachhead in Ipsos. The same day, the Venetian fleet encountered the Turkish fleet off the Channel of Corfu and defeated it in the ensuing naval battle. I will toast to the victory. On July 19th, the Turkish army reached the hills of the town and laid siege to the city. After repeated failed attempts and heavy fighting, the Turks were forced to raise the siege, which had lasted 22 days. There were also rumors spreading among the Turks that some of their soldiers saw Spyridon as a monk, threatening them with a lit torch, and that helped increase their panic. And I can believe this, because this is a true fact of Padre Pio. During World War II, Padre Pio announced to the people in his area where San Giovanni Rotondo was, over in the eastern part of Italy. And he said the war will not come and affect Foligno. The monastery was very near the town of Foligno. Foligno, was it? No, I don't think so. Maybe. Anyway, the town nearby might be Foligno. The harm would not come, and for the people not to worry. And there was two army pilots in a fighter jet and a German fighter jet coming up above in that area. And the two Americans saw this man in a brown garment, looked like a monk, but they'd never seen him before. And they were not Catholic men. They were Protestants flying this fighter jet. They saw him up in the air with his arms out like this, like, no, do not advance further. And they saw from behind, well, they saw him in the front, and then they were circling, and the German fighter jet came to do battle, and this monk spread out his arms, and the German pilots got panicked and turned around and headed back toward Germany. And so Padre Pio, they didn't know who it was, though. But they were freaked by it, but they were grateful. They knew somehow this man, this apparition up in the sky, but he looked real, he looked like a real man, had turned around the German plane, had prohibited them from advancing to do battle with this American fighter jet. And so they ended up, they landed at the next nearby air base that they could, because they were flabbergasted, to say the least. And they got out and they started asking around, and told what happened, what they saw. And thankfully there were two adult men who saw it, so they were a little more believable, but still people were like, no way, no way. And so, but somebody said, well, we know in nearby there's this monastery that supposedly this miracle worker man is there, Padre Pio, and people go there to see him. And they said maybe he has something to do with this or something, because they say he can bilocate and he heals people and he does all kinds of stuff. And so they, when they had to leave, they weren't on leave yet. The first chance they got, though, the first leave they had, they went to San Giovanni Rotondo and got in line. But I guess somebody had a picture or something and showed it to them of Padre Pio, and they said, "Oh, that was the man. That was the man." And I guess they did meet him, or he came out of the confessional and met them, or something. But didn't want to take credit or anything like that. But it was truly him up in the air, turning them around. Or he more likely bilocated up there, because he could be in two places at once. Padre Pio could. There were other proven sightings of him while he was alive, that he would be in two different places, because he never left the monastery to go to other places in Italy, and he was seen in other places in Italy. And of course, since his death, he's been all over the world, seen in visions. And even a little boy, I think it was in the United States, was very ill, and he told his mom, there's a man came in from the hallway, sort of a short man, and he wore this brown garment. And there again, but there I think it was a Catholic hospital, and so it got figured out. They showed him a holy card of Padre. Yes, that's the man. That's the man. And that was, I think, after he had died. It was definitely after he had died. So he's busy. He's helpful. And these things happen. So I have no doubt that Saint Syridon indeed did saw, that these soldiers did see Syridon, and it threatened them, it frightened them, and he had a lit torch and was basically saying, advance no further, turn around and depart, disband. And it did help them win the victory over the Ottomans. So the victory was attributed not only to the leadership of this Count Schulenburg, who commanded the stubborn defense of the island against the Ottomans, but also to the miraculous intervention of Syridon. After the victorious outcome of the battle, Venice honored Schulenburg and the Corfiotes for successfully defending the island. The great composer Vivaldi was commissioned to write an oratorio, Juditha Triumphans, in celebration of the victory. I'm going to see if I can find that on YouTube. That's going to be part of my travels, because I want to experience Saint Syridon. And there's a piece of art that shows Arius with his hands over his mouth, and Syridon, because Arius was silenced by the miracle explanation that Syridon made for the reality of the Trinity, and that Jesus Christ is indeed one of three persons in the Trinity, consubstantial with God. So, moving on here. His feast day is recognized not only due to the defense of the island, but Venice, Italy, legislated the annual litany of St. Syridon on August 11th as commemoration of the event. His feast day is celebrated in the East on the Saturday before Great Lent, known as Cheese Fair Saturday, and December 12th. For those Eastern churches that follow the traditional Julian calendar, December 12th falls on December 25th of the modern Gregorian calendar. So in the West, he is commemorated on December 12th, or December 14th, because it sounds all confusing. They don't want to have it be on December 12th because on this one traditional calendar, December 12th is actually Christmas Day. So they don't have any other feast days sharing Christ's day of birth. So instead, he's commemorated then on December 14th, which also, though, is St. John of the Cross's feast day. So that's special. To me, it is. I love John of the Cross also, and I'm loving St. Syridon. Syridon is also patron saint of the Tolstoy family, 15th century. Andrei Tolstoy in the 15th century, so the 1400s, chose Syridon as the family saint, and he remains so in both branches. The Grand Prince in Muscovy, Vasily II, who lived 1425 to 1462, apparently gave a gold cross containing relics of the saint to Andrei Tolstoy. This reliquary survives and is held by Nikolai Tolstoy. So this is where I didn't realize that families back in the 15th century would have a patron saint, maybe earlier. I want to look that up. When did having a patron saint for your family begin in history? Because I've chosen Saint Syridon for my family. They're not going to care. They're not even going to know until we're all dead. And they know just how extensive I got into the spiritual life for them. And they'll probably be very happy because I anticipate great things from St. Syridon with my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren or whoever comes long after I'm dead. And I'm going to include in their families any pets they have, like my little grand-dog named Johnny. Johnny Be Good is his name, but we just call him Johnny. He's a cute little white bull terrier. He's so sweet. He's very old now, but he loves it when Lovey and Mercy come and play with him. So he's a little sweetheart. And I call him my little lammy pie. He looks like a little lamb. His little head is shaped like a little lamb's head. Those little bull terriers have an unusual shaped head. Saint Syridon, this is repeat stuff, was born during the 4th century in Cyprus, married, daughter, sort of repeat stuff. This does impress upon us, though, his known for his devotion to God, his love for his people and for people in general, and his simplicity and humility. And of course, he's most known and also respected for all of his miracle working, including, this is new, resurrection of the dead. He could resurrect people who had died. So these things are actually taken. Here is a picture of his icon, part of it right there. There's Syridon. This is from a site I found online that actually are pictures from Corfu. His relics remained in Cyprus until the 7th century, before they were moved to Constantinople. Right after the fall of the city of Constantinople, his holy body, along with St. Theodore's relics, were moved once again from the priest Georgios Koloturetis and reached the island of Corfu. Initially, the relics were placed in the temple of St. Athanasius, but Georgios' son, Marcus, inherited the relics of St. Theodora and donated them to the Corfiot community in 1483. And that included the relics then of Syridon. And he's inside that reliquary there. They do processions of him on the island of Corfu. Of course, I'm going to visit while they're having a procession. Why not? So I can see that reliquary like I'm seeing it right now. I will just trail along behind, and if I get an opportunity, I'm going to touch my crucifix to it for a little added touch. I did that. They were having a procession. I happened to be in Avila on the Carmelites' feast day in July, and they had a procession through Avila. And I went along, and that very same day was the scripture of the woman who had the bleeding, was ill, chronically ill, and she was healed by touching the tassel of Jesus's robe. And I got it into my mind. How old was I then? That was in 2005. I was 54, so I should have been more mature, but I was convinced that if I could somehow touch the tassel of the priest, or maybe it was a bishop, who was leading the procession, that somehow I might be healed in some way. I figured it probably was. I didn't know I had arachnoiditis, but I had constant pain. My arachnoiditis wasn't identified until 2019 because it's rare, and it takes a very unusual and expert neurosurgeon to spot it. So, like this Forrest Tennant, this GP who claims he has a cure for it, he probably doesn't even know how to identify it on an MRI. Maybe he does, but probably not. It takes a neurosurgeon. But anyway, so I was in this procession, and I kept trying to get up close enough just to, by chance, be able to even brush my finger against the tassel. But then the other people around in the procession were getting, thought, who is this odd woman? And I wore a gray jumper then. Just a plain gray jumper. Not a sweater for you in England and Australia, but like a dress with a t-shirt under, a gray t-shirt under it. It was very comfortable. I loved that. And I had big pockets. I sewed big pockets on it. It was a cute style. I had taken one that my daughter had gotten from a Bloomingdale's catalog, a jumper, and just used that as my pattern. So it was it was a nice style, very simple. And those pockets were great. They held anything I wanted to put in it. Lots of holy cards I would carry around and stuff. And a rosary in my wallet and different things. But I had to back away because they were getting like, what is this woman doing so close? And they would sort of try to speed up, and I would speed up. And I thought, get a grip, grow up. That, if God wants, he'll heal me. Just my faith and my desire to reenact that scripture that was on that very day. I thought, what are the odds? It was a special day. I'm very fond of the Carmelites. Where's Teresa again? I've got her here. Teresa, she walked all over Castile, the area around Avila, which was very cold in the winter and rainy and rugged territory. And in the summer it could get hot and dry. And she walked and did her, set up her foundations and did much good, and walked with her feet just killing her. So this is the Corfiats honor and worship Saint Syridon and consider him the keeper of the city. So, well, what was that? So let me see. Oh, this explains why every family in Corfu has a member named after the saint. That's why this teacher in the high school where I was the media center director, his name was Spyrus. He was a member of the family. So he was named after the saint, Spyrus Patacus. So the island managed to overcome many difficulties due to his ultimate protection. He saved the island from the famine in 1630. He saved the island from the plague. Carol mentions this in her comment, that he saved it from the plague. He saved it once more in 1673. And in 1760, he prevented the siege by the Ottoman Empire. So actually, Saint Spiridon saved the island of Corfu several times. Several times. Here is more on him. Apart from all these savings, Saint Spiridon also performed many miracles, like giving back his sight to Theodorus, a merchant from the east, who had lost his sight completely. There's a man I know of who lost his sight in battle in the Gulf War, and he has not adapted well to losing his sight. It's been years he's been blinded from war injuries, and he would love to have his sight back. Why don't we all pray for Saint Spiridon to heal Sean's eyesight? Why not try in faith? His name is Sean, Sean. Let's pray for his sight to be healed. And if God chooses not to heal his physical sight, to heal him so that he can engage in life and be healed from the trauma of war and of losing his sight, that he can find something that he's able to function, because he's traumatized at this point from his blindness. Let's, any of you willing, please pray for Sean, that Saint Spiridon would please have, through the intercession of God, would heal Sean's eyesight, or heal in whatever way needed, whatever way that Sean needs. On Palm Sunday, the litany is dedicated to St. Spiridon for saving the island from the plague the first time. Holy Saturday, the litany is dedicated to St. Spiridon for saving the island from the famine. The 11th of August, the litany of St. Spiridon is dedicated to him for not allowing the Ottoman Empire to siege Corfu. 13th of July, the church remembers St. Spiridon's miracle, which gave back Theodorus his sight. The first Sunday of November, the litany is dedicated to the second time St. Spiridon expelled plague from the island and saved the island's inhabitants. The 12th of December, Corfu celebrates St. Spiridon's memory, and together with the protector's memory, we celebrate all the men and women named Spiros or Spirodula. Spirodula. So I will think about Spiros Batacus on the 14th of December. Here we have, on Palm Sunday, his relics are taken around in procession, and on all these other processions. And they have other times where they have veneration of his relics. All Philharmonics of Corfu, including the Philharmonic Society of Corfu, take part in these ceremonial events. The relic of his right hand was located in Rome, in the church of Santa Maria in Vallicella, to which it was given by Pope Clement VIII to Cardinal Cesare of Baronio of the Oratory of St. Philip Neri. There it remained until 1986, his right hand. Somehow they kept his right hand and wouldn't give it up until 1986, when the right arm of Spiridon was brought back to Corfu. So, for a long time, his whole right arm with hand was missing. from his body. Some other entity kept that portion, because he was a very popular saint with his miracles. And just the thought of touching the relic or having the relic in their church, people could come and pray. So where was it? It was in Rome. They kept that right arm and right hand in Rome. The Church of Santa Maria in Vallicella. That's the name of the church. Santa Maria in Vallicella. Given to Pope Clement VIII, and then to Cardinal Cesario Baronio of the Oratory of St. Philip Neri. So it made its rounds in Rome, because St. Philip of Neri's oratory was founded in Rome. So, and the oratory is a church there, the Oratory of St. Philip Neri. So, but finally, the right arm and right hand is back in Corfu with the rest of his body. You have to sort of get into this. You know, when I was first Catholic, and also when I was in Avila, well, and then we went to Abba de Tormes, and I would have been right across the street for 3 months in the Carmelites' apartment there. They keep for guests. I was going to be given that to stay in. The trip of my lifetime, but I ended up getting sick from the heat and had to go home. So, but we were in Alba de Tormes on a tour before I was going to be in the apartment, and that's where Teresa of Avila's heart is, her transverberated heart, and you see the stab wound, the wound from the sword that pierced it. It's there in a jar, like a reliquary jar, with liquid around it to keep it okay, formaldehyde or something. But you see the wound, the mark, and everything. It's amazing. But when I was first, I'd already been Catholic then 10 years. But at first it was like, ooh, you know, why would they keep these bones or these body parts or something? But then you realize if a person like this Spyridos, who his body was incorrupt, he was a wonder worker beyond the norm, exceptional miracles. And after his death, of course, you know, I got it. You know, you would lose your sensibilities of logic, which in a way faith is. We have to let go of logic when it's faith. Despite the miracles that prove things, and despite history of the fact of Jesus Christ and his birth and everything, and the location and the different sites that are there, still there, and now they have the Shroud of Turin and have been able to do, you know, these scans of it and see the image of Christ's face even in the shroud, and they can know his height and all, and his approximate size. They've learned a lot. That augments faith, but it's miraculous all of itself. And so their bones, their incorrupt bodies, the little bits. I have, yes, right here on me. Here's this relic of a little bit of cloth, or it might even be blood, that was touched up to Blessed James Alberion's body, or something that he wore. It especially since we know about DNA and the transfer of DNA to fabric, you know, it's maybe it's a little coinky, but when you realize how holy these people were and how good and the miracles, it takes you beyond the sensible, and you'll sort of lose any kind of objection and just go with the flow, you know. Celebrate this body that carried the soul of such a great person in life. Why not? And try to imitate their life. See if we can be holy like that. Well, we can't become them, but we can try to do good things in the world. Spyridos did a lot of good. He had a lot of faith. He was very, very humble. Just that alone. Let us all live humbly. That's not easy. Let us have the faith that he had. Let us live in the poverty of spirit he lived and the generosity of heart. And he gave away things. He was very generous with the poor, very concerned about the poor. So let us try to live like some of these people. That's the main point, because they have learned to live like Christ. They imitated Jesus, and then they are people just like us that we can be inspired, and we can say, well, they did it. We can at least try. We can at least try. And I suppose if somebody said, would you go and live in this leprosarium with these lepers and entertain them with your goofiness, I think I could probably muster the courage to do it, even though I know I would get leprosy and die. Well, I'm going to die of something. It's just that I know it would be very painful to die of leprosy. And I'm tired of pain. But I think if somebody said you're really needed to go lift up the spirits of people there, would you go and live among them? I think I could do that. I'd have to see if Lovey and Mercy could get a good home, or if they wanted to come along and were willing. I don't know. I guess dogs could get leprosy. I don't know. That's something I could look up. If they'd be willing to sacrifice, they would bring a lot of joy to children with leprosy, or adults too. I get joy from them. I'm old. So this is sort of, I don't know. Anyway, he's the patron saint of potters also, and of the island of Corfu. He's the keeper of the city there for the miracle of expelling the plague from the island. He is also the patron saint of Piraeus, where he is celebrated and honored every year on December 12th. It is believed by the faithful that the plague, on its way out of the island, scratched one of the fortification stones of the old citadel to indicate its fury for being expelled. And this is Saint Syridon expelled the plague long after he was on earth. It was his spirit that expelled it. They all prayed and asked him for help, and he delivered. Through the power of God, he was one with God. He had God's pure love. That's how he could do these things. That's why it behooves us to learn God's good, his pure love, so that we can do good things too. Great things, not just good. As human beings, we can do good things. In oneness with God, we can do great things to help the world. I would like to help calm people, bring peace to Minneapolis. That would be a great thing. So anyway, the scratch, there is a literal scratch on this fortification stone on the outskirts of the city. And to this day, in tours, it's shown to visitors and said this was made by the fury of the plague when it was leaving. I guess it's a scratch that wouldn't easily happen by normal means. So that's why they decided it was supernatural. Syridon is also believed to have saved the island at the 1716 siege of Corfu. We've already talked about that, but Um, oh, oh wait, that came later. This is this was out of context. I mean, it was that page was meant earlier on, but so that's all. The last page I actually had, I didn't show you this picture. This is a picture of the tower of the church of St. Syridon. So this is where I'm going to go and see that. Well, if you haven't figured it out, how I'll do it is I'll research online thoroughly Corfu. YouTube will have probably a video of the church. So that's how I go do these things. This is going to be my trip. And I already have my soup made. My something like aborigone soup or something like that it's called. Has a name for the lemon chicken soup that is typical to Corfu. I didn't make it exactly in proper order because I need to just get it all mixed up together, and then I have to make things easy for myself. So what you're supposed to do is cook the rice separately. It's supposed to be white rice. And all I had was some brown rice and wild rice, which is healthier, but I used that. And the chicken you're supposed to have separate. You cook the chicken and use the broth, and you can also add vegetables for the broth. Then you can remove the vegetables or leave them in if you want. But I had to just blend it all up with the rice, with the chicken. But if you're making it at home for yourselves, you make the broth, remove the chicken, remove the vegetables if you want, make the rice separately, and then take a lemon or a lemon and a half. Get like a cup of lemon juice. Well, I had a little less. I had a half a cup because this one recipe that was of the grandfather who was from Corfu, lived on Corfu and made this soup, the woman pointed out you can always add lemon, but you can't take it out. So you don't want to have it be too lemony. If you don't like the taste, then you're stuck with all this soup that's very, very lemony. So I think I had about a half of a cup of lemon juice in my batch. And you add broth, you whip it with eggs in a blender. You have to make it frothy. I think they used 2 eggs in the recipe. I used 3 because I made a larger batch. I adapted it. And you whip that, then you put some of the hot broth in, just a little bit, whip it in your blender, add more broth, whip it. It becomes like a thick cream.